In this lecture, we would like to discuss the very merits of dictatorship. So, dictatorship creates national unity and it also effectively meets emergency and it provides administrative efficiency. So, in detail, we found in a dictatorship, only one party exists and hence the national life does not suffer from any inner split by eliminating the sources of conflict. Dictatorship lays down a sound foundation for national solidarity. So also dictatorship admirably answers the needs of an emergency. To effectively meet an emergency calls for quick decision and immediate mobilization of all social forces. This requires a fast moving, unified political machinery under a dictatorship. Because of unity of power, a decision can be easily and quickly reached without a long drawn out discussion. Its political machinery can immediately be geared to the requirements of an emergency. And thirdly, historically, dictatorship is associated with administrative efficiency and quick economic progress. With total control over individual life, it becomes easy to accelerate the rate of economic and technological growth in dictatorship. This spectacular economic and scientific development in Soviet Union, the former Soviet Union, during the last 4 decades of the establishment of the Soviet Union, we found, due to eloquently of the efficiency of dictatorial system, a number of dictatorships are notorious for inefficient and corrupt rule also. What is therefore important is not the ambit of power, but its use for developmental purpose. In So now we'll discuss the demerits of dictatorship. As we found, one is despotism and the second one possibility of errors, one idea state and also continuous employment of force by the dictator. So the classics vice of all dictatorial system is their basic assumption of the superiority and infallibility of those in power, as it was observed by Professor Leibson in his work The Great Issues of Politics. Those in authority, because of their claim to infallibility, feel tempted to glorify power. This is in its turn is sure to produce some adverse reaction. Power, when glorified, has a tendency to grow into despotism. So, rightly, Lord Acton said that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And the second, some major mistakes in decision making and execution are not unusual in dictatorship, as the power conscious rulers are not confronted with necessary limits and criticism. So the claim to infallibility inevitably increase the possibility of errors. Through interplay of opinions, the errors can be minimized, but it is found one of the important demerits of dictatorship regarding possibility of errors. And the third important demerit that we found the dictatorial state is one idea state which is necessarily hostile to ideological multiformity. Freedom of thought is allowed only within the rigid framework of the ruling ideology. Every individual must conform to the standards set by the state. The denial of freedom of thought amounts to the denial of the opportunity for articulate expression of personality, in the absence of which man cannot realize his best. So, dictatorship established only one idea state, and that is otherwise called a single ideology, on which the state emphasized, and every individual is compelled to follow that ideology and to obey the orders that issued by that one idea state. And the last defect and demerits of dictatorship is continuous employment of force. So power is a mixture of force and consent. Since the source of power in dictatorship is not consent of the people, it has to maintain power through continuous employment of force. Force without consent becomes misdirected and ultimately shakes the foundation of the state. So, in this, we found the very merits and demerits of dictatorship. And now we'll discuss about how far democracy and dictatorship they actually reconcile or contradicts themselves. So, in that regard, we have to discuss some eminent authorities who have expressed their belief in the permanence of democracy. For instance, Professor Hadar Lasky, who in his Grammar of Politics writes, democratic government is doubtless a final form of political organization, in the sense that men who have once tasted power will not without conflict surrender it. And in the same way, Henry Mann's popular government and Lake's democracy and liberty content the complaints of a disposed aristocracy against an unwanted democracy. Even Lord Bryce, in spite of his strong democratic sympathies, anxiously expressed when the spiritual oxygen which has kept alive the attachment to liberty and self-government in the minds of the people becomes exhausted, will not the flame be burn low and perhaps flicker out? The class of two rival ideologies, democracy and dictatorship, occupies the center of man's interest in the contemporary world. They are engaged in an open competition for allegiance of mankind. So, in any evaluation of the two rival ideologies, dictatorship is believed to have a distinct advantage over democracy. Dictatorship, because of its total and absolute greed, is efficient in mobilizing all social energy for solving the emergent problems of the society. This sometimes makes possible accelerated economic and technological progress, but dictatorship has some major vices as fast because of the absence of any major check and opposition. The governing class has a tendency to glorify power, which ultimately grows despotic. Moreover, when a body of men becomes extremely power conscious, they are apt to commit serious errors for which the country may suffer. Secondly, in a dictatorship, people have no practical remedy for injustice and inefficiency of government. In the absence of the opportunity for organizing alternative ways of political thinking, the people have no freedom to choose a new government. The denial of the freedom to make and unmake government compels the people to stomach every injustice meted out by the ruling class. And thirdly, dictatorship is not conducive to the menial upliftment of man. Government, as John Stuart Mill said, is a great influence acting on the human mind according as it elicits or fails to elicit its energy. Dictatorship, as it does not afford the people any real opportunity to participate in the process of government, fails to enlist for its operation active wills and energy of the people because of structural rigidity. Its framework does not permit of the elimination of its innate vices. And now we'll discuss how democracy in comparison possesses some abiding values. The interlocking system functioning through multiple checks minimizes in democracy the possibility of overgrowth of power and makes continuous enjoyment of freedom by the people possible. Democratic government, as Professor McIver observes, is less dependent on psychology of power, and consequently the possibility of the government committing mistakes is reduced. And secondly, democracy allows the people adequate remedy against governmental injustice. The people have the necessary freedom to make or unmake the government. This makes the government abide by the interest of the people. And lastly, democracy, by allowing the people to actively participate in the process of government, aids in their mental development. So, the future of democracy depends on its ability to find out new ways and new institutions with a view to eliminating tensions from its structure. So, firstly, comprehensive planning is necessary. Then, in turn, it will prevent the emergence of any major crisis in the society which nurses the forces of dictatorship. So, as Karl Manham says, 5 or 10 years plan demanding prior agreement not only on the starting point but on the sequence of subsequent steps have become the pattern of social change. So, democracy, if it is to survive, must have a mature awareness of the major problems of the contemporary world and must explore effective ways of tackling those problems. In brief, democracy to meet the totalitarian challenge must be combined with the core of socialism, its stability and justice consciousness. At the same time, it must reject the totalitarian implications of socialism. The face of democracy should be polished and not disfigured through the alliance with socialism. So, we have completed our final debate that we just now discussed in short regarding as relating to democracy versus dictatorship and the very relevance of democracy in the modern contemporary world and the very responsibility of democracy is how to tackle the major problems of the contemporary world and it must explore effective ways of tackling those problems. So, we have completed our lecture on dictatorship. So, in our next upcoming lecture, we would like to discuss some other important legal and political issues that we will discuss in our upcoming